Welcome to everybody today. I see a lot of familiar faces from across the country and around the globe. It's Jim Norris. I'm the publisher of Canadian Music Trade and the president of CMT. Really glad you made the time to come here today. I know how busy all of you are. So what's this all about? Why are we doing this? A couple of reasons. One is to give people in the MI industry the chance to connect. Normally we have trade shows and we're traveling and doing all kinds of things where we get to see each other, but that hasn't been the case in a long time. So this is one way to at least get together, network, maybe learn a few things and get some positive reinforcement, which is sadly lacking out there, especially if you watch CNN. I used to love CNN, but not so much anymore. So first off, who are you? Okay, so here we go. So I have a little poll here for you. If you can go in and just fill out, now some of you may be more than one of these things, but if you can pick the major thing, dealer or dealer staff, supplier, sales rep, educator, other, and other. If you're here for the medical convention, you're in the wrong Zoom meeting. So, okay, so lots of dealers. So there we go. That's pretty good mix, actually. Okay, so secondly, where are you? Assuming you know that. So you're in the West, you might be in Ontario, USA, other. Okay, good stuff. Okay, so today at 4 o'clock EST, you'll get an email from us and it will take you to a resources page. And there's a whole bunch of things there that you can download or link to that are related to what we're doing today. You'll also receive in the next day or so a PDF of this presentation. So that basically means you don't have to make notes or write anything down. You'll get a PDF handout of this. You'll also get the chat transcript. So anything that's public that's going back and forth between all of you, you'll get that transcript. You'll also get a recording of the entire session today within the next couple of days as well. And just so you know, at the end of our meetup proper here, we're doing breakout sessions with the 3 guest speakers. So if you can hold your questions to that time, so you'll have the chance to talk. Your mics will be on, your video will be working, and you can network with each other and also ask questions and talk to our 3 guests. So agenda, where are we now is the first thing we're going to talk about. What your action plan is. Now, this is just suggestions from me. Mike Raine, our editor-in-chief, is going to interview Mark Hebert. Steve Butterworth is doing a presentation, and then Mike's also going to interview Joe Lamond from NAMM. And then, as I mentioned, at the end of that, we'll be doing breakout sessions. Now, with the breakout sessions, you can go into one, but you can switch as well. So you can go to all of them if you like. So you can spend maybe 5 minutes in one and ask your questions of Mark, and then you can move on and go through all of them. So you have that opportunity. Okay, so where are we now? Now, all these things may not apply to you or your company, but in many cases, reduced revenue, strained resources, in some cases, making do with less staff, negative news and attitudes out there, certainly a lot of that, travel restrictions, both business and holidays, working remotely, that can have its frustration for sure. A lot of online events, trade shows. We're actually right in the middle of Canadian Music Week right now. We're quite involved. I'm doing a presentation this evening. conferences, demos, training, meetings. Of course, you've probably attended a lot of these, and a lot of them are done not that well. So if you're going to do any of these things, do online presentations or training, make sure you put the quality into it. Don't use the excuse, well, it's online, it can just be a piece of shit, because that's not true. You have to kind of excel. Virtual performances, most of those are terrible. They have improved, but in many cases, they're just somebody with an old acoustic guitar in their jammies in their bedroom. So that's not what you want to do if you're a musician. Online sales and marketing, of course, e-commerce, a lot more retailers are using e-commerce, and certainly that's good. And it's about time in many cases, a lot of new technologies to learn. And if anything is constant, it's just that everything's changing. Every day there's something new. So that's hard to keep up with. But the good thing is a lot of the change is positive. There's trade shows starting again. Summer NAMM is happening in Nashville in July. In the fall, there's quite a few trade shows on the ground, with restrictions, of course. Cirque du Soleil is starting up in July. Broadway is opening in September. So with all the constant change, there is some good news. And by the fall, Canada, we're a little bit behind because of the vaccinations, but we're starting to catch up now. So there's definitely some good news there. So your action plan, again, this is my opinion. This might not be your action plan. Certainly, number one, get vaccinated. Okay, if you haven't yet, get vaccinated. I think it's like any age now, pretty well, you can get vaccinated. Pursue all financial assistance, everything, whether it's government, whether it's your friendly banker. You might avoid the mob, but other than that, there's certainly lots of government assistance. Reduce non-essential expenses where you can. Good time to upgrade your knowledge, your business knowledge, your skills, your capabilities. Improve your processes. So the way you do things, take that all apart and say, okay, we can do all of this better. We can do all of this faster. We can do all of this easier with less stress. More focus on sales and marketing than you had before, keeping in mind that the results of some of these things aren't immediate. So don't get frustrated by that. Some of the effort you're spending on sales right now and marketing might pay off in the fall, as an example. But if you don't do it now, when the fall comes, you're not going to be doing so well. Expand the markets that you're in. Okay, be looking at different markets. Build up your network, your database, customer database, your CRM, social media, especially LinkedIn. I've gone on a LinkedIn binge lately. I'm over 7,000 connections now, all high quality. And I've done that in the last several months. Just make more connections, period. And don't forget about Mr. Telephone. Some people have forgot about the telephone. You can actually call people, talk to them. Of course, you can do Zoom meetings. No problem there. There's lots of ways to connect with people. Avoid negative people and news sources. Not all news sources, but certainly negative ones. Personally, I've found CNN's just gotten worse. Fox News always was. I personally like NPR in the States. On Facebook, as an example, I've been a member for 15 years. The last year, I've unfriended about 200 people just because I get tired of the whining. You don't mind negative facts, but if it's just whining, I'm stuck at home and what are we going to do? And it's like, see ya. Plan for a better future. So get that into your plan, however difficult it is right now, be looking ahead and saying, okay, this part of the market is going to pick up by summer or the fall, but have plans for that. Don't just wait, it's here and you didn't plan. And last but not least, never say die, period. Don't give up. You just keep going. Down there, like there's an old expression that's someday we will laugh about this. Well, might be true, but try and laugh about it now if you can. Okay. So that's a suggested action plan. As I say, we're going to send out a PDF of all of this So you'll be able to look at this and decide if any of this makes sense for you. Okay, so our first featured speaker today, we're really happy to have Mark with us. Mark is the president and CEO of Cosmo Music up in the boonies north of Toronto. And if you have the chance, you have to go to Cosmo Music because it's an experience. It's an incredible store. Hartley Peavy was there for a tour, and he just said it was the most incredible store he'd seen in the world. So it's quite amazing. He has also launched music with some partners recently in the distribution area. And he's also a member of the NAMM board of directors. So very busy guy, to say the least. So we're very lucky that he took the time to be with us today. So Mike Raine is going to ask Mark some questions, and welcome both of them.
All right, Mark, do I have you with me?
I believe you do. Can you hear me?
All right, there you are. Good to see you, man. How you been?
Very good.
So Jim said visiting Cosmo is an experience, which is a good segue into the main theme of this short chat we're going to have. Now, when I was recently interviewing James Curley, the new-ish CEO president of Gibson Guitars, towards the end of our chat, I was asking him, like, what do you foresee in the coming months coming out of the pandemic for MI retail, and how the best stores are going to come out of this and do in the foreseeable future? And he was really big on this concept of like omni-channel, which is essentially just like a fancy way of talking about experience, giving customers an experience rather than just purely transactions. So I'm wondering, how do you feel about this concept? Is this something you've been thinking about? And where do you see, if you want to call it omni-channel or just about experiential purchasing, or just talk about the concept of experience in retail in general, is this something that you've been thinking about as we hopefully see normal in the foreseeable future?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, this is something that's been damaging to our industry over the last year and a half. Experiential typically involves massive amounts of servicing. So you've got lessons, repairs, rentals, all those things that are naturally embedded in our typical retail ecosystem for all of us as retailers, and obviously integral parts of how we get customers in and maintain customers for the long haul as musicians, especially when they're beginning. We started our experiential journey back in 2008. So 13 years ago when we opened our store, and that was the intention surrounding the design of the store, is that with the anticipation of commoditization in our markets in general, and I'll talk a bit about that in a minute. Having a store where you can both provide all the services surrounding the products we sell and highly curated experiences for customers to be able to have while they're at your store has become over the course of the last couple of decades even more important. In terms of commoditization, that's to fight or battle against, let's call it the Amazon effect, or the commoditization of most products that you can easily buy online and have at your door within a day, 2 days, and eventually soon. I mean, we should all be nervous about the eventuality of it becoming within an hour to an hour and a half to 2 hours, especially in the GTA if you're within a metropolitan area. This is coming, so it's something that we should all be thinking about in our daily activities.
Now, your store is quite the exception when it comes to the space you have, the setup you have, the resources you have. Not everyone is as fortunate to have a place like Cosmo. But like when you look at other MI retailers, like what are ways in which they can improve an experience? Like what have you learned that can trickle down to a smaller store in terms of providing services? Yes, but giving them a reason to come to a store.
Yeah, that's a great question. And to be honest with you, I think smaller dealers who have smaller stores have a much greater opportunity to provide customers with an in-store experience that is way higher than they could in any other kind of retail format, especially the big box stores that we're used to going to these days. I mean, I can see a lot of people here in the windows here that I know are already providing exceptional customer experiences. I see Murat here in Aurora, unbelievable store, and the kind of experiences he can provide his customers are way better than even what I'm able to provide, because there's a certain level once you become so bureaucratic, it's hard to keep your finger on the pulse, and I can't be on the floor talking to every customer. It can be way more easy to have an organic kind of conversation and give a customer a way better experience with a smaller store. So bigger doesn't always necessarily mean better. It just means it brings more challenges to the table. But those in-store customer experiences are what matters, and loyalty, customer loyalty, and providing those customers with what they need is of utmost importance.
Can we just kind of dial in on what you're talking about when you talk about experiences? Like, what are some examples? Are you talking about clinics or something more everyday or more fundamental than that?
I'd say it runs the gamut of what you're talking about. So an experience can be when you come in a simple conversation. So a frontline worker, a salesperson, and the way he communicates with a customer, that's an experience. And the kind of feeling that the customer leaves your store has to resonate with that customer enough that the customer wants to tell everybody, shout from the rooftops, you wouldn't believe the kind of experience I just had at this store. That's an experience. All the way up to clinics. So we have as you know, we have a big theater, and so we're able to organize clinics pretty easily. We have an events coordinator, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't all be taking advantage of clinics. Clinics is one additional experience that you can provide your customers and bring customers into your store and keep that loyalty going. Another thing about clinics and keeping that customer coming in and inspired and motivated is, we all know, it's been discussed for years, that you've got this time period where new musicians have to be learning music, and in order for them to stick with it, it's somewhere, I think it's 10 months is what they say, you have to keep playing music until you eventually are going to stick with it. So keeping those customers or those new musicians going and inspired, especially in those early years, is of utmost importance.
As we come out of this pandemic, and I know by this point we're all kind of tired about talking about the pandemic and its impact on stuff, but it's a hard topic to avoid still. Hopefully that's not the case in 6 months' time or whatever. But for now, as we come out of this pandemic, how can dealers help each other, as well as suppliers and dealers, be working better together to make sure that we're all helping each other emerge from this stronger?
That is a really, really good question. Something we talk about constantly at Cosmo Music, and inherently those conversations led to the creation of Launch Music, and kind of the mission, vision, and values of both Cosmo and Launch, is that cooperation with dealers is important. So if being adversarial in nature isn't going to help any of us. There's so much possibility, and the pie can be so big. So if you look at the per capita spend and the amount of musicians in Canada, it's way too low. And actually, an example of what the pandemic has shown us, at least in Canada, I'm not quite sure what the statistics in the US are. Maybe Joe can elaborate on that, but is that the pie did grow. So we know that the industry grew, and the ramifications that has had on our industry, and we're not alone, we're not the only industry, is that there's become a huge supply chain pinch, and so there's a lack of inventory. What that points towards is that look how easy it is to grow the pie in a very insignificant portion, and how many more music makers it can make, and how much more sales and revenue opportunities that all of us have as dealers. So in Cosmo, we are more than happy, our customer support team is more than happy to direct sales to other dealers if they've got it in stock and can service the customer better. And that's a mantra we talk about in our customer support department. It's all about making the pie bigger. So creating more musicians and having more music made and more equipment purchased. Ultimately, it might be a customer for another dealer, but eventually that will come back and it'll be a customer for Cosmo Music as well. And it'll be a customer, hopefully a customer for numerous ones of us in this room. So growing the pie should be what we all strive to accomplish.
That's a kind of an excellent segue into my last question here. You know, I remember there was a report, I forget who did it. It might have been Gibson or somebody, but or Fender, one of those companies. They did a survey a few years ago that showed that something like 8 out of 10 new guitar players were dropping the instrument within a year for a variety of reasons.
That was Fender. Yeah.
Was it Fender that did it? Yeah. You know, I think about that as I see the stats about these surges, as well as when I talk to suppliers and dealers over this last year about the surges that have been seen in certain segments. And again, the pandemic has had an uneven impact on the MI industry. There's segments, anything to do with live music and live sound obviously has been devastated, but we've seen huge surges in anything to do with home recording, as well as guitars, keyboards. I've even been hearing from dealers of like accordions and banjos. They saw huge surges during the pandemic. So certain segments, this was a boon for. So I wonder, you know, to draw it back to that Fender survey, how do we make sure these people that are maybe young people picking up an instrument for a first time or older people returning to an instrument from their childhood, that it just doesn't become a pandemic hobby, something that they did to kill some time when they were stuck at home, but they become lifelong musicians going forward? As dealers, how do we turn these new customers into ongoing customers and make sure this is long-term growth, not just a nice but short-lived spike?
Yeah, I think that ties in nicely to the previous discussion we were having in regards to in-store customer experiences. So both, and that doesn't mean in-store, just in-store. It means online as well. If we have that chance to provide customers with exceptional online, that's much more difficult. But keeping these musicians who are new through that period of beginning musicianship inspired. And you can imagine if you go into a music store and you're inspired to create, or you're inspired to take a lesson, or to watch an artist, or watch a master class on something, or even online, you're gonna pick up that guitar one more time. And I think we just need to talk about it in very small increments, like baby steps. Let's just keep them playing. Let's give them a reason to pick up the guitar one more time. Let's sell them something to add to their guitar that they can experience new tones and new variety of sounds, which will keep them inspired. Let's sell them a music book, or talk about a new musician who's come out with a great piece of print music to inspire them to play. And those are all, they call it like micro doses, or micro doses of experiences in the store that can eventually lead to them continuing to play. And all of us have a role in that. We can all continue to inspire beginner musicians to play. So those two things tie in nicely together. And I think we have a big opportunity that I hope none of us miss out on after the coronavirus pandemic kind of lets up, where we've got all of these people who are now fresh. So let's all work together to keep them going and keep them making music. Maybe the summertime isn't the easiest time to get these people to continue to play if it starts to release itself, but we're heading into the fall. So as it's going to let off the pandemic, these people are going to fall into the fall. Kids are going to want to learn music. Adults are going to want to play. They've got more time in their hands as we become more cooped up in our homes due to the weather. Let's not lose that opportunity, and let's keep all of these people, these newbies, playing music.
Perfect. Oh, Mark, thanks for doing this. Folks will see you again shortly in the breakout rooms, but from here, we're going to go over to Steve Butterworth at Yamaha. Thanks for this, Mark.
For sure.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike and Mark. Some great ideas there, great attitude towards our industry. And you'll be able to talk to Mark and ask him some questions in the breakout sessions in a little while. So one of the people that I talk to pretty often is Steve Butterworth at Yamaha. And certainly if you're looking for somebody positive to talk to, it's Steve. And I think Yamaha is kind of the poster child of a supplier that's worked really well with the dealers in the last year and a half. Steve's also an accomplished trombonist himself, so you'll find him certainly playing live and online as well. So I'm going to turn it over right now to Steve Butterworth from Yamaha Canada.
Okay. Hi, Jim. Thanks, everybody. It's so nice to see so many friends on here. Really missed traveling over the last year out to stores, and we'll get back out there when we can. I think my local Long McQuaid store has seen a lot of me this year, but I haven't ventured much further than that. And so, yeah, I'm Steve Butterworth. As Jim said, I'm a trombone player, and somehow I'm fortunate to be in the position of Vice President at Yamaha Canada Music. I started my journey in a small musical instrument store in Burlington in 1998. 1988. I was hanging around the store long enough until the owner said, "Hey, do you want a job?" And that was my friend Jack Shearer and his wife Faye, and they had a great crew there. I learned so much in my first 8 years of retail from working in a small but really strong store that had a lot of depth of people. I was hired to be a band instrument salesperson, but used to dread, oh no, someone just walked into the synth room and Jack's not here. Well, in that environment, you had to figure out how to do that. And, eventually, thanks to the support of some amazing district managers and reps, our Yorkville rep at the time, Rick Donmeyer, was one of the best reps I ever had a chance to work with. I learned so much from both the staff and the reps at the company that really helped me find my place at Yamaha. I'll be celebrating 25 years on July 2nd, and it's hard to believe. So my original career path was to be a high school band teacher, but 25 years ago, I answered an ad in the newspaper looking for someone with a music education background and retail experience, and fortunately, I was given that opportunity, and I'm very honored to speak with you all today. I really feel that although we have a lot of friends and colleagues, we have competitors, and as Mark was saying, and I'll get to it a bit later, I think it's so important as an industry in Canada that we gather around the common mission to find a way for roll out of bed every morning and say, how do we get more people interested in starting to play music and continuing to take it to another level, learning how to do sound, learning how to do recording. And that's really what I view our mission as a whole. And of course, we may compete with each other, we may support each other, but at the end of the day, the result of the overall activity should be a greater interest in music and music education. Over the past year, it's been remarkable with the trials and tribulations. I speak to Jim on a regular basis to kind of acknowledge a lot of the challenges, but also successes people have found. There's going to be many lessons learned from our individual journeys and the outcomes for both our personal and business lives. But of course, the hardest hit has been the live music and performance sector, including live sound and lighting production, live shows. The last thing my wife and I did before we went into lockdown, we saw the Hamilton production on Friday, the 13th of March, and it was amazing, And as being someone that goes out and plays in the community at festivals, we really miss doing that. But largely that sector of our customer base has been so hardly hit. And on top of that, while there have been government programs to support many sectors of the industry, the live performance sector has largely been under-supported. And this is such an important part of the industry. Talking about, learning how to cover departments. I was the PA rental guy for 2 years at the store, and I had to learn that every Thursday afternoon was going to be very busy back when bands used to do 3-nighters, and every Monday morning was busy because I had to bring everything back, and I'd have to figure out, do we have enough for the commitments for next weekend? So, that loss of foot traffic to the store for rentals, and then, I'm going to pick up some sticks and some strings, and maybe I'll rent this really nice guitar for the weekend and treat myself. That in-store, just casual walk-in has really been quite challenged. And I think the other challenge in our industry that we're feeling for sure is that our industry at its best, in my opinion, provides an advice-based sales environment. We have knowledgeable staff that can guide customers on their journey to get started with just the right product solution for the moment in time they are out in their musical journey. So kind of the Goldilocks and the Three Bears, not too hot, not too cold, but just right. I think if a customer buys in this current environment where it's hard to get into the stores to speak to your knowledgeable staff, Some stores have employed chat on their website, which I think is a very powerful tool. Some people, I've got Murat here in the middle of my screen too, pointing out, hey, I'm here at the store, come and find me, like telling people how to connect with me in a very personalized way at some stores, but at other stores on a larger scale, maybe, chat is the way. And, a lot of customers, because it's, in the online environment, it's perhaps a little bit too easy just to return something. Either it's not quite what you needed, so you underpurchased, or you've bought something that's way over your head. And, so getting back to and valuing that advice-based sales environment, I think is really important. And whether it's going to go back exactly to the way it was, well, perhaps some things will be accelerated, such as chat or specialized pre-sales advice and things like that through the dealer or manufacturer websites. I think that's something that's extremely important, because you might want to record something and I can hook you up with software and monitors and speakers, but I don't have microphones or cables. And so you need a retailer to provide you with all those solutions. And I think it's an important part of what we're seeing now a year on. And, other than some specific product categories that most people could just guess are experiencing challenges such as school band and orchestra, live sound, giant bass amplifiers. People are not purchasing as many refrigerator-sized bass amplifiers as they would normally going into festival season. But, the sales and demand in other categories has either covered some or most of that shortfall. But of course, if you're really focused in one of those particular areas, I really can empathize with you that, it's very, very tough if you focus in school band and orchestra, that a lot of your revenue stream has really been, disrupted, and the demand has been disrupted. So I think as an industry, there are a lot of elements related to the band associations and the music educator associations that are really working hard now to make sure that school band and orchestra comes back as strong as possible next fall, and hopefully we'll gain the traction we need. It seems ridiculous. I was talking to Adam from Long McQuaid yesterday. It seems ridiculous that we need to advocate for music education in schools. We don't advocate for math and other things because we don't need to. People just know it's what you need as a life skill and how it contributes to you. So, and I think one of the other biggest impacted parts of our industry is, and one of the best drivers for your business is a music school in your store, and music education. That everything went online last spring, and it was, quite really disruptive. And some people found a way to continue strongly, some kind of in the middle, and some really found it challenging to continue. But that loss of traffic and ability to offer a weekly in-store experience has really been very challenging, especially if you run a school-exclusive retail. Reflecting a little bit on the market at the high level, Jim and I actually contribute to some of the annual NAMM market reports for Canada. So, Joe, I hope I'm not going to, reveal any secrets from what I just submitted to your team a couple of weeks ago, but some of the insights I've gleaned from publicly available information and done some analysis on is that the importation of musical instruments are steady over the last 3 years, within a couple percentages of each other. That's my observation. Now, there are no good reports for imports of PA or recording gear. It's all combined with home audio and car audio and things like that. So, but what I can say is, the gap is, the difference between, so if the imports are steady, but we're seeing the demand so high, obviously many of the stores are out of stock or have moments where they're right out of stock. Many of your Canadian-based distributor warehouses may have different levels of inventory, certainly quite different than usual. And so it's really hard to read what the actual demand is at my level, frankly. And, for you guys at retail, how much have you got in orders for pre-sold things to customers versus a bit of speculative stock? You felt, okay, I did a lot of sell-through on the products I did get last month. I'm going to buy a little bit more for now. So it's very, very dynamic situation. And, but I think, my observation is that most regions in Canada fared fairly equally as far as product supplies go. I think that, one of the main themes I've shared with my team and when I've spoken to our dealers and things like that is at the end of the day, we, whenever I try and connect with someone on the phone, either I get an email, someone's not happy with something we've done or haven't done or could have done better. Rather than sending another email And as Jim mentioned, the phone still works, and the value of getting on the phone with a customer or a supplier or someone in your ecosphere, your bank manager, being able to start the conversation with, how are you doing? How's your family? How's the team at the store? How's everyone doing first? And then, okay, let's talk about what we need to sort out, or how we can do things better. Because I think at the end of the day, most of us are musicians. So you can get into a situation in a band where, you might not like, so-and-so's doing this, and bass is too loud, or a trombone player keeps dropping his spit everywhere. You get into little family squabbles, but at the end of the day, communication is so important and can overcome so many problems and misunderstandings that emails just only make worse. And I think, one of the things I try to do in life and a little bit in work, and when I'm talking with some of our retail partners, is a little bit of parting words. Just something I found helpful is take some time now, if you haven't already done so, to reflect upon and identify 3 things that you should never stop doing in your business. Whether it's a retail store, you're a distributor, you're a manufacturer, retailer, whatever you're doing in your business, or wherever you are inside that business, is identify the 3 things that you should never stop doing. These are at the core of your values, and you want your business to be perceived and actually to be like that. So whatever it is related to your customer experience, customer service, your store policies, your approach to the market, really reflect as an owner or a leader. I know most people on here are owners or leaders, certainly within their businesses, and really make sure that your employees, your teachers, your service partners, and your suppliers know what those 3 things are, so they can actually get aligned to them and help you to reinforce your business to become what you want it to be. And then at the same time, identify 3 things that you can or must stop doing. Maybe you've already done that over the last 14 months. You've been forced to do that because of circumstances. Could have been something you did in your business that was a nice to have, or this element, but in the end, you've identified it as something that's not really giving you a return on your investment in time or resources. And it's something that you don't necessarily want to return to your business unless you can confirm what the contribution actually is. And I think that, it's equally important for you to make sure that your employees, teachers, service partners, suppliers know what those things are, so they're aligned to those, and so they don't keep trying to go back and do them and kind of pull you off course, And then, at the end of the day, why do you need to find the 3 things to stop doing? It's so you can find the 3 things you need to start doing to recover your business and shape it in the image you want it to be going forward. The past is the past. There's been some amazing accomplishments in business. Many people have been knocked about in this storm, some off course, some need to find a new course, some are getting back on. Everyone's on their own journey. But I really want to encourage you to identify the 3 new things you need to start doing to recover your business and shape it in the image you want. And then also equally important, you need to find a way to get everyone in your ecosystem on board with this. Otherwise, they will keep going back to the old course or the old ways. And so at this point in time, some of those new things you might have already started, and you've had enough experience to say, yeah, we're going in the right direction on this. I just need to kind of codify and solidify it and make sure everyone understands what that looks like. But some of the things are just maybe emerging now. And so, one of the things to do, I think, is important, as Mark, I know, always encourages, Mark from Cosmo, and as, in not only the way he thinks personally, but in his role on the NAMM board, is that, there are a lot of relationships between different store owners across Canada. Maybe you're a custom shop for a certain product, or you're more of a general provider, high-level service variety of products. Is connect with other retailers like you that you connect with at maybe only at NAMM, but talk through problems. How are you going to solve this? How do you do this? This looks like really interesting. Why did you go in that direction? The missed opportunity from not having a music industry association in Canada regular meetings and collaboration. I think we're missing some of that. But, obviously taking advantage of the opportunity of NAMM. And, I'd like to thank Joe and his whole team for the great job they did at Believe in Music this year. They brought a sense of bringing everyone together. And I think, it's just so important for the industry to stay well and appropriately connected, because, at the end of the day, as Yamaha, of course, I'm going to do everything possible to succeed as a company, but I need everyone to succeed. I want all of our retailers to succeed, because I can't succeed unless you do. I want our competitors to be strong and doing really interesting promotions, driving interest, get more buzz going around music and music education, because you don't want to be the only retailer in one small town necessarily. You might like to be, but then it's kind of like the sound of one hand clapping. We need a big round of applause to get everyone excited about music, and for the industry to really rally around the recovery for live music. And, I think at the end of the day, as I said at the beginning, really connect with your customers and partners, your suppliers, your bank manager, your staff, connect, ask how they're doing, keep it human. And at the end of the day, our role as an industry is to find a way to help more people to know and enjoy listening to music, and to know the joy of playing a musical instrument or performing with others. And thank goodness that's our mission. I get very inspired to get out of bed every day to do that. I don't worry about moving boxes. I worry about more kids in band class, more kids in your guitar group lessons. How do we find more people to get interested in performing and playing music? So if there's ever anything I can do to help you, you'd like to give me a call. My door is usually pretty open. And I look forward to the ongoing chats later. And Jim, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity.
Great. Thanks a lot, Steve. The point you mentioned about getting on the phone, I think, is a really good point, because Steve and I talk pretty well every month, and he's kind of an exception. I can call, and usually I get a call back certainly within a few hours. There's other people in the industry that you get a call back never. And certainly in the pandemic, a lot of people have lost their way to the reply function on their email. And you send an email and, you never hear anything, or you get a response 4 months later. So I think an email relationship is pretty weak. So, a phone relationship is a lot better. And obviously in person is the best. And that's coming down the road for sure. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. So where are we here? There we go. Okay, so a couple of things. We deal with NAMM a lot. NAMM's an incredible organization under Joe's leadership, and we deal with a lot of different people there, and it's just amazing. Joe is also very responsive. If I send Joe an email, I generally get a response almost in minutes. I'm not even sure how he does it exactly, but NAMM as an organization is very focused on making more music makers worldwide. And I think that's really important, because at one of the NAMM summits years and years ago, that was the discussion, and everybody realized that most people want to play music, but the percentage of people that do, it's not that much. So there's a disconnect there, and somehow we have to bridge that and get the people that want to make music, make it easier for them, easier to buy products and get lessons and just get involved. So, of course, Joe's perspective is international. NAMM has become more international over the last several years. And NAMM is the first organization in all of our industries to launch an in-person trade show, which is Summer NAMM. And I'm so happy to see that. We'll welcome Mike back again to talk to Joe Lamond.
All right. Joe, let me know when you're with me.
I am here. Thank you guys for letting me crash your Zoom party. Thank you.
Thanks for joining me, Joe. How are you? Well, I spoke to you recently, but for the folks out there, how are you getting by these days?
I've just gone to answer that question by saying it's unbelievable, because that covers it either way. No, I'm so inspired to hear Mark and to hear Steve and, and Jim, thank you for putting this together. I do see so many friends here, and this, one of the silver linings where this wouldn't have been possible without this technology. So, we search for the silver linings, we take advantage of them, and we still try and get together as an industry and do what we do best, which is share and help each other and lift each other up. So yeah, happy to be here.
Absolutely. In just a second, we're going to talk about what you have planned and how things have been coming together for Summer NAMM, which is just under 2 months away. But first, last time you and I spoke just last week for an upcoming thing in the magazine, we were talking about the pandemic and the good and the bad of how it's gone on either side of the border. As we stand now, the States is seems like roughly 3 months ahead of us in a lot of ways in terms of the vaccine rollout and the reopening of businesses and restrictions and all of that. So I'm curious, I'm sure a lot of, most of the audience here is Canadian. I think a lot of people are curious about how your membership has been doing in the States as things reopen. I know it's different from region to region in terms of where things are at, but for places like California and New York, Nashville, where we're going to be for Summer NAMM, where things are largely reopened at this point, how has MI dealers in the MI industry been rebounding in these early months?
That is a very complex question. And being a Buffalonian and having relatives on both sides of the border and realizing that the border's closed, what a strange concept, right?
Yeah.
Having Andy Zildjian tell me that every time he goes up to the factory, he has to quarantine for 2 weeks. These are just really kind of unnatural inputs that we've had to deal with. But, Steve mentioned the idea. It is a tale of two outcomes, live music, school music programs, anything where there was social proximity, obviously just impossible during the pandemic. Stay at home, would have been a great time to be in a bread maker business and a good time to sell guitars. That kind of, I've always wanted to do it moment that we had brought on by the pandemic. In our case, in the US, the States have largely taken independent routes. I have a son in Texas, and he said, Dad, we just really didn't have a pandemic in Texas. We just chose not to participate. And, so Dallas is just, flying and doing what they do in Florida. And I think since we talked, I actually flew to Nashville. I got back and I just actually said, I've got to go to Nashville. My team had been there planning for Summer NAMM. I said, I've got to go. I've got to see it for myself. I've got to get on an airplane and walk through the Nashville airport and meet with the city and go down on Broadway and see there was no pandemic in Nashville. Every club has live music. Every bar was full, restaurants full. I spent some time at Gibson. It was just, it felt really good. And I think as we as an industry will discover shortly that as we're able to come back out again, the natural rhythms of human connection restore very quickly. There's that first moment of awkwardness. Do we shake or do we yell? And all of a sudden a hand is thrust out and you shake hands. Immediately you start hugging. And I guess being vaccinated helped that. You felt like I'm a little more, able to get through all that. But I think what struck me on this last trip to Nashville was just that how quickly human behavior will return to what we know and love. So that's a takeaway. But yeah, our states have, California has taken a little bit more of a restrictive approach, but even county by county, it's just all over the map. And I think that's, if there's one, there's lots of stories that'll come out of this. And one is the perhaps lack of really credible, good information on what was real, what was not, what was the right way to approach it. And so, it's like historians are still arguing over the impact of the French Revolution. They'll still say it's still too soon to tell. It's just, that's how they're going to be writing about this one. But so I think it's the good news is pandemics come, pandemics go. The bad news is every one of us just experienced one, and each and every one of us, have to have our stories of our loss, our friends, our family. The bill from the pandemic is yet to come due, I think, in many ways, whether it's in fiscal overspending or in mental health for children. They're still going to come due on that one. But I believe that one of the things that an outcome for us in this industry, perhaps maybe the most important, is that we've created an absolute new generation of leadership that will never, ever look at a crisis the same way again. Picture any of you right now in your stores or in your businesses a few years from now, and someone comes running into your office and saying, boss, we have a huge problem. And you just sit back and you look at them and go, huge problem? Let me tell you what a huge problem is. The government says, shut your store down, and I just think we're going to have this, this leadership is just going to be, they're going to be walking around the NAMM show. I mean, I just can't wait to see these people. They're going to look chiseled and bulletproof. And I think that's going to shape the industry for decades to come in a very, very positive way, I think. So, yeah.
Interesting. For speaking of Nashville, so for Summer NAMM, you and I, again, we talked about this really recently, but I kind of want to fill people in on the background because it's quite interesting, right? When did you guys feel confident to really commit to Summer NAMM and say, we're going to put on this show? And why was it such, obviously there's a pretty big financial interest in it for NAMM to make sure the show happens. But as an industry, why was this so important to commit to?
That speaks to the concept of leadership, that we've all had to make big decisions, right? And we all wanted to keep our teams safe. We always thought about that first. We wanted to keep our family safe. We always wanted to do the right thing. We're driven by that. We wanted to keep our customers in schools, music programs. We wanted to do the right thing. And a year ago, when we canceled Summer NAMM and ultimately Winter NAMM, no one knew what was lying ahead. We canceled Summer NAMM early in April of 2020, and many people thought I did it too early. Like, wait a minute, by July this is going to be over, And we were too optimistic. Here's my kind of observation there. Early on, we were way too optimistic that this was going to end quickly. We were really positive about it. Conversely, a year later, I think we're too pessimistic that it's not going to end. And I think there's a real human nature study in there somewhere, which is whatever the condition, you're in, you think it's always going to be that way. We thought this is never going to end. And I knew it was going to end. And I knew that we had to then just sort of pick a spot on the calendar with Summer NAMM for 2021. And we realized that's the moment. We have got to get back in. We're going back into live gatherings. Our industry depends on live gatherings, school music, live concerts, festivals, theater. And if we're not going to lead the way in, who's going to? So that's how we looked at it. And it's a little bit of, being from Buffalo, I can use a hockey analogy. We were trying to skate to where the puck was going to be. I thought by July, the amount of vaccinations that were, coming out in the US and maybe increasingly globally, that we would have a pretty good shot at it. Is it going to be smaller? Yeah. Were we really worried about how to keep everybody safe? Yeah. I mean, working with the Event Safety Alliance, this group that we've become very close to, what are the right protocols? So this will be a great kind of like, playing upstate New York before we go to Broadway, before we go to January, to work out a lot of bugs about what does the safe gathering look like now? And, philosophically, going into any Winter NAMM show, I would always come out of that show with some kind of raging flu. Now, ironically, after the 2020 show was the one year I didn't get sick. I can't explain that one. But if we do a lot of things differently and think about safety a lot better, the 2022 NAMM show in January may be the actual safest, healthiest show we'll have ever had in history. So we're all going to learn a lot about this. But we knew we had to get together. We knew that the collaboration, what I've noticed during the pandemic is how long it takes to get things done. It's tough to get all the decision makers on a Zoom call or a Teams call or all together. What used to take, face-to-face, an hour meeting could take 2 weeks now to get a decision. I want to get all the decision makers together. And that's what the NAMM shows are about. You get all the decision makers together, stuff happens, and that's what it takes. That's the kind of thing that doesn't translate well to some of these other technology mediums. So we knew we had to plan as an industry to get out of this. We knew we had to plan what's next. We wanted to prepare for this. I mean, the economy right now is pretty good, and we want to make sure we don't miss a day of it. And so the planning that will go into the second half of the year that will occur in January, and then the sessions. I mean, NAMU, the sessions. I mean, the topics. Zach gave me a printout of the what he's got lined up for July. It's like the retail store of the future, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, what's working in online marketing right now, new innovations in music lessons, new innovations in store events, lessons learned for the next pandemic, financial lessons learned, the next 5 years, biggest trends in retail, customer experience in a post-pandemic world, navigating business in times of social unrest, Gen Z managing a new generation of workers. I mean, that's a how-to for the next 5 years of running our industry. So there'll be a lot of good things that come out of Summer NAMM. Now, I'm not sure if any of you guys can come. How's that? I'm talking to a bunch of customers who can't buy. I hope that's changed by then. I don't know. Does anyone have any latest on the border? Can you come down? I don't. I got relatives that can't go across the Peace Bridge right now, so it's weird. So anyway,
the latest vague news is that talks politically have started, but there's no real news in terms of when and if the border will close. Ironically, I think it was the Canadian politicians that were saying no thanks to Americans crossing the border. Now it's the Americans that would probably have better reason to say no thanks to Canadians crossing, but it is what it is. But in terms of that, like your international membership being able to take advantage of Summer NAMM, and I know for Summer NAMM this isn't yet, or this isn't part of the plans in terms of a digital component because you guys have enough on your plate. But when I was talking to Zach back for our NAMM show, or I believe in Music Week preview, I should say, he said you guys were eager to kind of do your postmortem on Believe in Music Week afterwards and see, if and how certain elements of that can be incorporated into future NAMM shows to make it more accessible to an international audience.
Yeah.
So what did you guys learn from that Believe in Music Week experiment, if you could call it that?
The trick is there too, is that, we had to absolutely reinvent the business in a very short period of time. I told Chris Martin, our chair, it was like, you've been making guitars since 1833. And one day someone came in and said, you're now making jet engines. Go. And we do in-person events. And so, but it was fun and we learned a lot. And I think the takeaways for us were basically a couple of things. One is we reached deeper than we had before. I think we had 188 countries that were involved versus 132 in the Winter NAMM of 20. Two, I think the education on demand was really helpful. That's one of the challenges of the NAMM show. How do you be two places at once? And the idea of networking and being more efficient when you're in a physical event. I think that was a big takeaway from us by having that kind of social interaction, ability to schedule, mapping very effectively where you want to be. So the three things are, we want to go deeper internationally. We want to have more education on demand. And I think for the in-person event, having that platform like Believe will basically make you a twin. You'll have two people. You'll have 2 or 3 people with you while you're in Anaheim and be way more effective about all your schedule. You can be actually participating in sort of a session or watching a session while you're going to your next meeting, or finding where your friend is over in Hall E and connecting that way. So I think having that capability when you're physically there will actually increase your effectiveness in the time you have there. So those are the 3 things we're working on for 22. I think it's we can't go back. I mean, we've learned a lot during the pandemic. These things, will there be some trips I don't take because it Zooms and Teams? Probably. I wouldn't maybe go over to Shanghai for a 2-hour meeting now. That would be really nice. But I'm not going to miss. Humans gather. 6,000 years of recorded human history. We have gone on pilgrimages every single year, usually at great pains of death, Silk Road and all that. But we gather. It's what we do. And as music people, we are especially adept at that because our entire fiber and wiring is about being together and gathering. So, I think I'm optimistic for, I'll come back to what Mark and Steve were talking about. I think this is the Uber, I don't know how much time we have left, 1 minute. This is the Uber lesson of our whole existence is we have one job. We have just one job. And I know we all individually have different parts in that role, manufacturer, distributor, retailer, but we have one job, and I've got it down to 4 letters. I'm a drummer. I like things really in 4. Odd time, Bruford, not going to go there. Texas Shuffle would be great. We have 4 letters, MSFQ.
MSFQ?
MSFQ. No one knows what that means.
No.
Here's what it means. We have one job, more to start, fewer to quit. We have the roles in industry is to get more people starting to play music and enjoy music. And then the second half of the job is to get fewer of them to stop playing, fewer of them to quit. And particularly right now, if there was a pandemic boredom rush into guitars and banjos, and someone's got to explain to me the accordion one. I'm not sure. Steve, I'm calling BS on that one. You said there was a rush on accordions.
I think that was me, and that was actually based on a conversation
down on that one. I want to see some
months back with someone in BC.
I want to see documentation on that one. And does that mean like from 2 units to 3? Now, if there's an accordion store, I know I'm going to get beat up here. So again, I digress, which happens with drummers a lot. MSFQ, more to start, fewer to quit. However that means, right? How do we get some of these, lapsed players, who might not have been able to go to their school music program? We got to get back into the school music. There may be a role for weekend warriors. There's a role for, in our case, there's a lot of Hispanic guitar programs that are really culturally important to that segment. It doesn't matter how. That we get to be agnostic. More to start, fewer to quit doesn't tell you how. You decide. Under the NAMM Foundation, there's probably 30 model programs that we've funded that you can just pick any one of them. Depends on age and social, where you are, what type of instruments you're pushing. But, MSFQ, more to start, fewer to quit. That's the gig. If we all do that right, then everybody thrives. And by the way, if we do that right, we actually solve a lot of the world problems that are happening right now. And that should get you out of bed in the morning. But MSFQ, it's the top line. I've been reading, NAMM, okay, fun fact, NAMM was 120 years old last Sunday. So I've been going through the archives and just reading by decade, what were the biggest problems each time. There's always been distribution changes. Thomas Edison invented the phonograph and everything went crazy, recorded music. There's always been many things that affected every decade. What never changed was the MSFQ. We always needed to get more to start and fewer to quit. That has transcended 120 years of NAMM's history. So I will put that on my gravestone. Here lies a guy who said MSFQ, more to start, fewer to quit. That's the gig, ladies and gentlemen. And how we do it is the creativity of each and every one of us. Each and every one of your businesses have your own style, your own special superpower. That's the cool thing. There's so many different musical styles, so many different instruments. That's the beauty of it. We all got to do it in our own way, but we got to do it.
Beautiful. No, I think that's a good place to end this portion of things and jump to the breakout rooms. But, like we were saying, sadly won't be at Summer NAMM, but man, I can't wait to be at NAMM in January because I sure missed it this year. It's always the best.
Thank you very much, Joe. Just a comment on traveling to NAMM. Most Canadians get to NAMM on an airplane. There's lots of flights. So we can't drive across the border, but we can certainly fly. I looked it up and there's several flights a day from Toronto to Nashville on various airlines. And I didn't look for Vancouver and Montreal, but I have to assume that's the case. There's restrictions when you're flying. You have to wear a mask and such, but regardless of what happens to the driving across the border, you can certainly fly there. The other thing is following NAMM's leadership. This fall, there's a whole bunch of related shows that are going in person. Infocom, major AV show, NAB and AES are coexisting in Las Vegas in November, which is very exciting. LDI, the lighting show, is on this fall. So there's just all kinds of things that are starting to happen in the fall with in-person events. So I think NAMM is certainly the first one. But I also noticed I let somebody at NAMM know the auto show in Chicago, which is apparently a huge show, is actually on the ground in July. So that's pretty cool. Anybody who's an auto nut. So we're going to go into the breakout sessions. And you'll see when you go in on your controls, you can join whichever one you want. You can go back and forth, and they're just named with the three speakers, okay? So one thing you have to do in your controls is turn your video on and turn your audio on, okay? So let's meet you in the breakout rooms, and thanks a lot for coming today.